when it populates up over here on YouTube. Okay. All right. It's populating in there, so it's already recording for 14, 14 seconds. All right. So we already got it up. All right.
Okay.
All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Frank with another episode of Real Raw Exchange Podcast. Can I get my co-host to introduce herself?
Hey y'all, this is Matt.
Yeah. So it's been a while. We haven't been recording for a while, but I think we got a goodie today as far as topics. Um, just to let y'all know, so yeah, we've been living life, pretty much, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's my other phone. I'm not answering it now. But anyway, uh,
Oh,
whoever can, whoever call me back, they can call me back. Whoever calling me now, they can call me back. But um, the topic for today. So that hit me up in reference to a interview that was done by Van Jones. Van Jones, and he does certain interviews. I believe it's called The Messy Truth.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it was an interview that was done about roughly 2 years ago. And Busta Rhymes, if you don't know, Busta Rhymes, famous rapper. He's been around for a long time. Been around since pretty much the early '90s. Okay. The funny thing is, he's actually my third favorite rapper. When it comes down to the list of rappers I have. And Nat sent me this interview, and I've already seen the interview. Saw the interview a couple of years ago, but she sent me the interview. She thought it would be interesting to be able to talk about, and we're about to go in on our different points when it comes down to the interview today. But I'm gonna name this episode "The Bus and Van Dialogue," the Messy Truth interview. Okay, so um, I guess I can go ahead and start. So for me, and I'll just kind of go into the reason why Busta Rhymes is my third favorite rapper. Okay. Ever since me hearing the track "Woo-Ha, I Got You All in Check," which technically was on his very first solo album called "The Coming," which came out, if I remember correctly, around 1993. 1993, and I believe, if I remember correctly, so 86 or 86, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was 7 years old when that album came out, and I was already kind of more or less a hip hop head as far as three main artists or different groups that I would listen to. Busta Rhymes was one of them. The Far Side, when it came down to that, hip hop group was one of them. And I used to listen to Tribe Called Quest a lot growing up. But Busta Rhymes, one of the biggest things when it came down to Busta Rhymes was his ability to be able to flow fast, like be able to rap fast. And I always enjoyed that about him. Where for me, if I'm going to study somebody or be able to understand what they're doing, um, especially with my passion for words and be doing certain things when it comes down to the spoken word side of the game. I'm actually study them. I'm understand where they come from, their background. You know what I'm saying? Details on all the stipulations as far as how they came up in the game. I already knew that Busta Rhymes had influence by Chuck D, but the details that I found out earlier on in reference to how influential Chuck D was in Public Enemy to Busta Rhymes. I didn't know all those details until, about like roughly 15 to 20 years ago. I'll say, get about 17, 18 years ago. I didn't know all those details, but in the interview, it was a breath of fresh air that, he gives props to his elder. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things that is prominent with Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes always gives respect to anyone who gives respect. But there was also a recent video that I saw where there was a woman who, ended up grabbing him on, his bum, on the butt, and he turned around. He had a drink in his hand. He turned around and he threw the drink on the woman.
I can see that.
And I think it was warranted. I think it was warranted.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, he's not going to hit her, right? So that's
No.
that's the
Right. He was just, and he like threw it. You know how in church they be having the communion oil. You know what I'm saying, or the blessing oil, and they would throw it like that. That's how he threw the drink. It was a cup. It had a lid on it, but it was like in one fluid motion. He clipped off the lid and was like blessing her. He blessed her with the drink. But get it on details as far as Busta Rhymes. So my top favorite 3 rap artists. Number 3 is Busta Rhymes. Number 2 is actually Chuck D. And then number 1 is MF Doom. Okay? Chuck D grew up in Harlem, New York. Busta Rhymes grew up in first Long Island and then he moved to Brooklyn. Now, MF Doom has more prominence in Brooklyn even though he was born in the UK. And then had to go back to the UK because during his younger years growing up in New York, he was never an actual citizen. He never got his papers. He was just living in New York. And then somewhere along the line, services got caught up with him and he was deported back to UK, but was still a prominent artist when it came down to underground and got more notoriety in the UK once he ended up eventually going back to, his birthplace. So it's like, for me, stories, being able to understand stories of, different artists, so on and so forth. But to look at the interview, it gave me more respect for this man. It gave me more respect for this man because he's going into details of things that obviously he's more than likely never shared with anybody. He doesn't seem like the type of man that's going to be, telling his business to everybody like that. And, I think it was a great thing Van Jones was able to get an interview with Busta Rhymes because Busta Rhymes is a walking hip hop historian. He's a walking hip hop historian. He came in the game under Public Enemy when it came down to, his group, Leaders of the New School, came into the game and literally Chuck D gave him his name. Mind you, his name actually was based on it coming from a football player who was very prominent at that time. A football player who was also named Busta. And Chuck D gave him his name, but then added the rhymes part to it in reference to just the aggressive way Busta would, spit, or, the aggression that he would have and the energy that he would have, For me, I believe I really latched on to Busta Rhymes just because of, his, energy, the fast way that he would rap. I respect fast rappers, especially if I understand what they're saying, because I like challenges, like one of the things that I, will always get me when it came down to the challenge was when his third solo album came out, Extinction Level Event 1, which actually came out in 1999. Or no, sorry, 98. It was 98. Extinction Level Event 1. On that album, he had Janet Jackson on that album. On that album, he also had this one track called Gimme Some Mo. That track by itself.
Yeah, I remember that.
That track by itself, I used to rap over that track religiously when it came out. And I'm still, I just broke, being in my early teens around that time. So Busta Rhymes has a great part in my life, and has a special place in my heart because he was doing things that I didn't understand what he was doing all in detail, but he was adding on to my level of critical thinking when it came down to hip hop, something that I'm actually passionate about. So, Nat, you got a few things to say, or you want to be able to go in?
Yeah, sure. I can go.
Yeah.
So first of all, sorry, y'all. I just got over a cold / I don't know what it is. So if my voice sounds a little cracky, or if you hear me clear my throat, it's because it's still lingering. So this is going to be interesting because mine is a little different from what you just heard from Frank. So for one, during the time Busta Rhymes was out, I was not a huge fan of hip hop. So I was more of an R&B person. So it took some time for me to actually get into hip hop. Unless there was a song that I heard that like I instantly kind of gravitated to, I just did not listen to hip hop. So saying that, I think I didn't really listen to Busta Rhymes. Matter of fact, I didn't listen to Busta Rhymes until he did the song with Janet Jackson. Okay? So I had slept on him for a very long time, and then he came out with this song with Janet Jackson, somebody that I did listen to sometimes, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, is that Busta Rhymes? And it made me go back and listen to some of his stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, this man is talented, okay? Yeah. So that led me to go back and listen to some of his music. Now let's fast forward to this interview. I haven't listened to his music probably, it's been years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been years. When I saw the interview, I was in my bed, couldn't sleep. And I actually think I was feeling that type of way where I was trying to, I don't know, something just kept keeping me up. So I said, well, let me go on YouTube. Let me go on YouTube and see what's on YouTube. So I go on YouTube and I pick up this interview. I mean, I see the interview. And if you've ever heard the saying, you had me at hello, that's what the interview was. This interview, I mean, what Frank just said about him gaining a newfound respect for what I gained so much. I mean, I gained knowledge, I gained respect. I had some great inspirational takeaways that I could actually apply to my own personal life, some obtainable things that I could apply to my life. And what was mind-blowing is that I just thought it was so transparent. He was just so raw and pure and honest. And I mean, with every question, and I'm kind of glad that Van Jones did dig into some of the questions a bit, because, some of them was like, I don't know if he was. Let me see. But here's the beauty and the artistry and the mastermind of Busta Rhymes. If you have a chance to look at the interview, because we can't play y'all, it's just mad long. It's just super duper long. I mean, because I was like, I mean, it was so good and it was so long that I listened to it to maybe about like 2 minutes left at the end, got up the next morning and listened to the rest. It was
Mm,
that good that
mm,
I felt like I was going to miss something.
mm-hmm.
I personally, I think he should be a motivational speaker or something because I mean, in the interview, he had some questions about things, and his answers were so spot on, and they were so honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how he picked his words. It
Mm,
it like it didn't bring about any like unclarity. It didn't bring about any confusion. Like I understood exactly what he was saying. I didn't feel like he felt like he had to dumb himself down for whatever audience he was. He just spoke, and I couldn't believe the stuff I was hearing him say. Not only that, he brought a lot of different aspects into the interview. And if you all have been like listening, or if you follow us or whatever, you know some of the things that we've talked about as far as family, relationships, the black culture. You know,
mm-hmm.
he brought all of that into one interview, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I mean, and he speaks so. I mean, he's very articulate, but honestly, that's that's most lyricists and rappers. But I gravitated towards that interview as soon as he started talking because I was gonna turn it off. But as soon as he started answering the question, like at the first question that Van was asking, I was like, oh, I gotta keep watching this interview. I mean, he brought up things about and what I didn't know. Here's what I learned so much. What I did not know was his background.
Right.
So I did not know what type of profession his mom was in.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what role she played because she played a huge role in his life, in his career. He put a lot of trust in his mom. His dad, if I have this right, he described his dad growing up as a blue collar worker,
Yeah.
but he also described him as an entrepreneur. So he didn't just stay there. And I think he said that what pivoted him to kind of, get into music is that he saw what his father was doing, and he was working. I can't remember where he said he was working, but he was working somewhere he wasn't, he couldn't see himself at. And I think it was a blue collar job where it
So
was like manual labor or something like that.
his dad was working at some department store as doing electrical work, or for that matter sheetrock, and stuff like that.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah,
and
yeah,
and his dad
yeah.
was like, nah, I'm not going to be able to maintain doing this, especially with me
Um,
being younger. And literally, and one of the analogies he made was how his father's hands were almost the same age as if he was the age right before passed away,
yeah,
at a young age, where it's kind of this thing where his dad ended up moving from that and ended up legitimately creating his own electrical business
right,
because
yeah,
his dad was a certified electrician, which is blue
right,
collar work, right?
yeah,
And had his own business, so on and so forth. And that
yeah,
was the one thing that he took from his dad, because he said that
yeah,
Busta Rhymes had a job. He only had one job, and then moved
right.
right into working for himself, being a rapper.
Yeah. Right,
He
he did
did.
say that.
He essentially took the same path as his dad, but his dad didn't, support him when it came down to the
Yeah,
rap piece.
right,
Him
yeah, yeah.
growing
He
up,
did say that.
and he didn't have a lot of. He explained very eloquently
Yeah,
the details of him always taking his mother's side because he was a mama's boy,
yeah,
in
he did say
reference
that.
to the image of how he saw his dad growing up. And I think that part, it was a lot of parts in the interview that was just fire, dope,
It, it was, y'all. It was so much fire. It had me thinking to myself, why have I not? Why did I not know this about Busta Rhymes? why have I not? Why have I been
But
sleeping on
you
him this
never
whole
you.
time?
I
You
think one
know,
of the, and you mentioned it. One of the biggest things that I've realized and understood is black men and black women in the black community in the United States. You have a lot more black men that gravitate toward hip hop and a lot more black women that gravitate toward R&B. Okay? Especially when it came down to our generation growing up. You know what I'm saying?
oh yeah, yeah.
And with what happens is when you end up having that crossover, you then understand other aspects about a particular genre that in most cases you probably avoided based on certain aspects of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. And
Mhm.
I would say that, where it's kind of this thing of, there are a lot of things that are talked about in hip hop. One prominent thing that is in hip hop, and we can't ignore it, we can't avoid it. One thing that's prominent in hip hop is sexism. Okay. Another thing that's prominent in hip hop is, drug culture. You know,
Yeah.
most black women cannot identify with that or understand that or are willing to listen to it, even though now this day and age, especially, I don't even really think R&B exists anymore. I think it's just more so pop. Pop music.
I would agree with that. It's not R&B is not. It's just not what it used to be. I
And
mean,
no,
it has
no,
kind of evolved into this genre that is not. I don't even know. Listen, some R&B. It's gotten to the point where I don't really listen to the radio. What I do is that when I want to hear music, it's probably music that I already have on my device, and it's probably something that I grew up on, or something that really speaks to my mind, or something like that.
yeah,
Um, but it's not new age R&B unless it's just an artist that has just come out that I like, and I'll listen to it. I'll go and maybe I'll do Pandora, and I'll just go to, like, I like Pandora only because you have a chance to hear artists that are like the artists that you're listening to.
right,
So it kind of shuffles music around like that.
yeah,
But I think I mean, hip hop was a whole era. I mean, it was an era, and whether you listen to it or not, you still, I mean, you were in it. A lot of the lyrics and a lot of what they talked about in their music, it reflected heavily on the black community.
yeah. Like,
I mean, it just did.
let's be real about it. In reference to hip hop, in reference to R&B, I believe, especially in the 90s, they did a lot to make sure what was in R&B and hip hop reflected in the lives of the black community and what was happening in those times, especially the 90s and going into the 2000s.
Yeah.
It reflected, and it wasn't a thing of them projecting a certain image onto us in reference to what they think we should believe is going on. It was legitimately them showing us in a creative way what we are already going through,
Oh yeah.
you know? And I think that's what's different now
No,
because
because there ain't no creativity right now.
there's no creativity. There's just more of a cycle of the same shit over and over.
Yeah, I was
Like,
gonna say that that's what it is. I think now they're in, like, I swear I think that they're all lost. I swear they are. No, I'm not gonna say all of them because most of them are just lost. And then, and I don't know. Like, for me, the reason why I listened to the hip hop I did listen to was for the authenticity.
oh yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
that was involved in that movement brought some originality
They
to
had their
the craft.
own
And they
thing.
had their own sound. They
They
had
had
their
their
own
own
sound. They
sound.
had their own image. They had, even if you look at, like, um I listened to Bone Thugs and Harmony, right?
Yeah.
That's probably how I got further into hip hop. Why? Because I was an R&B person. You
Hmm.
had a group like Bone Thugs and Harmony that kind of resembled what an R&B group would look like,
And
sort of sound like,
it was
but
like
really
they were
sing. It was
rapping.
really it was
They
like,
were
what y'all
rap.
singing or
They were
rapping?
rapping, singing. You know,
Yes,
especially Busy Bone. Busy Bone. If
yes.
you hear Busy
I
Bone
love
just
Bone Thugs and Harmony. I
if
was
you
like,
hear if you hear Busy Bone by himself just rapping, for that matter, if you heard Busy Bone sing, just sing. He has an immaculate voice, but then he crosses that over into his rap style. No one sounded like Busy Bone.
no,
And and,
I love
and
Bone Thugs and Harmony. I was like, and it came to a point where then you had Twista come out, and I remember something where, and I like Twista.
yeah,
Why? Because he used to, because, I think what brought him stardom was that he could rap extremely fast.
extremely fast. But
He
mind
was a
you,
rapper.
mind
But I
you,
didn't understand nothing he said.
what's
I just want to go
crazy
and say, I didn't
was
understand anything he said.
you know what's crazy?
Nothing.
You know what's
Nothing he
crazy
said.
is the fact that Twister can rap his ass off. He can rap
Yeah.
fast, but I know Twister at one time said that Buster can do it better than him. That's what's crazy. That's what's crazy to me. Because mind you, it's not necessarily your ability is not only what you show. Your ability is to be versatile, and someone can only see a snippet of what you show, but you got other things in the disposal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what's great. Like, getting back to the interview, right? Buster,
Yeah.
when Buster was talking about his father, when Buster was talking about his father, more or less the relationship that he had with his dad, and then later on down the line, with his dad, for so many years not necessarily being a supportive factor in him doing rap and everything,
Yeah.
and then when it came down to the details of him being able to buy his dad, a Rolex,
Yeah.
being able to buy his dad certain things just off of the concept of rap,
Yeah.
his dad realized, oh, my son is just like me,
Hmm.
in reference to the concept of discipline. And I want to speak on that real quick. You know what's crazy is most of the guys that are probably rapping now, we only have a few. I would say we only have a few, like maybe J. Cole, you know what I'm saying, Kendrick, you know what I'm saying, that I can honestly say with me seeing them or listening to their ability, we know that those are disciplined brothers.
Hmm.
However, most of the cats that are rapping now, they're not disciplined. They're just a copy.
And you have to think about how I think about it too, not to cut you off, but some of them don't have I shouldn't say don't have a reason to rap, but if you go back and you look at why they were rapping, what they were rapping about, what they were
Yeah.
talking about, they had reasons. They had to
Substance.
get they had a
Substance.
story to tell and they
Right.
had minds to actually reach. They had a mission. That's what I want to say.
I'm gonna keep it
I
a
felt
buck.
like they charged themselves with a mission and a responsibility to get whatever knowledge they had out
And the
onto.
and the biggest thing when you with you bringing that up, Nat, is at one time I thought of becoming a 5%er myself. The 5% nation of the gods and earths. At one time I thought of becoming a 5% myself because Buster Rhymes was a 5%er. At one
Hmm.
time, obviously I didn't make that choice because I would have had to go to New York and be able to go to the location that they call Mecca and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
do
I know, I
certain
get it.
things when it came down to all of that. But um, just the fact that Busta Rhymes, and also this is another prominent thing when it came down to Busta Rhymes, both him and ODB actually had a battle. There's a video that's out there, and I want y'all to look this up. There's a video that's out there with Busta Rhymes and ODB in. It seems like a cipher, but it was actually a battle that they were in, right? Where it was a whole bunch of 5%ers. And if you don't know, there are a lot of prominent hip hop artists that are 5%ers. There are a lot of them. A lot. Jay Electronica, Jay Z, Busta Rhymes, ODB, Mos Def, um, a lot of them, and a lot of people believe that the 5%ers are Muslims, and in actuality, they're not. That's the unique thing about it. But also, the details of the 5% Nation or Nation of Gods and Earths, um, actually is an offshoot of Nation of Islam. But the way in which they use the way the religion is in Nation of Islam is a little different. But they don't consider it to be a religion. It's more of a way of life. But that's a whole nother conversation. Nevertheless, the aspect of conveying knowledge, I was getting up on that at a very early age, which is probably one of the reasons why I have the mindset I have today, or if I could say, probably have a certain level of creativity that I know I have, and get drawn to other people that are about knowledge in similar ways that I am. You know, Busta Rhymes was one of the ones that helped me out with that, just by way of proxy. Like me listening to his music, even though I've never been to any of his concerts. I've never, actually tried to go and, try to take a picture with this man. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But the things that he was saying and the way in which he said it, you knew he was conveying some knowledge. You knew he was conveying some knowledge, and you were drawn to listening to this brother. But getting back to discipline, I believe in this day and age, a lot of people don't believe that most black men are disciplined, let alone understand the way in which we exude discipline in various ways, especially when it comes down to what we would consider to be our profession. I think discipline is a very, very important thing. And in the interview, him speaking to the detail of how, he learned certain things from his dad. Growing up, he couldn't stand his father because he didn't feel like he had the proper support that he felt he needed. And he was a mama's boy,
Yeah.
Let me get on that. Real quick. The detail or the definition of what a mama's boy is, because we go through, or we as a black community in the United States, doesn't matter, culturally, where you are or where you come from. Because of course Busta Rhymes, his background, his Jamaican background, West Indian Jamaican background at that. West Indian is one thing, Jamaican background is another. You know what I'm saying? And then when you combine the two, definitely respect is very prominent, but then also the concept of discipline in doing for yourself is very prominent in the Jamaican culture. Him coming from that background, it says a lot. It definitely says a lot about him. And him having pride in that, is a beautiful thing. What's some of the things that you saw in the interview that you like to talk about, Nat?
I like the fact that, well, one of the things that kind of hurt me in the interview, well, not hurt me, but I felt, sad about, I guess, is he talked about when his father died. And he said that his mom, whatever the differences was that him and his father had, he was able to resolve it before that happened.
Yeah.
But he spoke on how his mother was not able to do that. and it really messed with her because she just wasn't able to kind of, bring it to a close.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could think about was that happens way too often, especially in family, especially in family. You got, whatever the reason for you, like, going your separate ways or whatever. I think that, as people in general, we have a start date and we have an end date. And everything in between, gives you, well, not really time, but it does give you time to kind of, live your life, love, laugh, enjoy each other. But somewhere along the way, you're going to have differences with somebody.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I never understood why people don't, I guess, make an effort to resolve things while the person is still here. And I say that because I'm not saying I'm the most perfect person at doing that. But there has been times where even if I was in the wrong, I have picked up the phone and talked to somebody and said, look, I just, whatever happened, whether it was my fault or whatever, I just want to make things right. Like I just want to apologize, or I want to make it so that we at least, even if we don't talk again. I'm not saying that we're going to be friends. I'm not saying that we're going to be buddy buddy, but I want you to know that I have to, some sort of resolution I think should take place, because if something happens to the other person, it's naturally going to be in the back of your mind like, that, maybe I should have done this, or I wonder if they really felt this way, or maybe if had I just, called, yesterday. So that part really messed with me because it sounded like in the early years, like when he was a kid, because he talked about him, it sounded like they had a family.
Yeah.
Like he didn't come from like shit parents. Like I hate to say
No,
that.
no,
He
no, no,
didn't
no.
come from
Both his parents. I'm gonna say both his parents
yes,
were
I
good,
mean,
good,
he had an
solid,
educated mother
good, solid
who
models.
invested in him.
Good,
Yes.
good, solid
He
models.
had good
Let's keep it
solid
a buck.
parents.
He has some
And
good
I'm
fucking
like,
parents.
that's just,
Absolutely.
it was just the saddest thing. And I was like, I wish for him that he could have. And what I took from that is that he didn't feel like he felt bad. He felt bad because she didn't make it right. He was saying it, and he was conveying it in a way where he knew that she wanted to make it right.
Right. Yeah.
And so, another reason of how nicely he would word his word. It was a great and dope interview.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this, especially when it comes down to the mom. And I think this is one of the prominent things that I believe we in the black community in the United States still does not matter what cultural background you come from. We as black people, just let's just put it like that. We as black people, the African, the black diaspora as a whole, we are so disconnected to where motherfuckers will hold grudges until somebody dies. Somebody gotta die for you to realize the importance of their existence.
Yeah.
Like somebody gotta die. You know what? I'm gonna share this right now. My wife and I, we were talking today, and going back to one of the things I've said before, I mentioned in a conversation with my wife today was, giving somebody their flowers while they're still here compared to giving it to them when they pass away. You know, one of the things that I've gotten tired of, and I was talking to my wife about, I've gotten tired of is trying to be there for people who have no clue what reciprocity is, have no fucking clue what it is, let alone feel entitled in gaining things from others just because they appreciate the gifts and believe they deserve them. My thing is, what are you giving? What are you giving? Obviously, with a good amount of people, a good amount of people's character and this is one of the prominent things that I saw in this interview when it came down to Busta Rhymes. It really showed where his character is as a man, let alone a black man, but his character. But
Yeah.
where does your character lie? Like, do you understand really the importance of your character? How you
Yeah.
act with others, and the importance of, I'll go as far as saying this, the importance of, true collectivism. Really coming together with someone or, a group of people. You know, I think we've lost that, and the dynamic of black men and black women being able to understand one another as far as, and I've shared this before, understand one another as far as who we are and what we are is continually under attack. You know, especially when it comes down to the what part.
Yeah.
Because we are different. We are different. And you know what? I'm gonna just say this for all, the feminists and womanists in the house, you know what I'm saying, who are very prominent as far as, establishing their own entitlement in reference to, their mindset on, them believing that, a woman is more important than a man, and then all my red pill motherfuckers in the house who want to reinforce what the man is more important than a woman. Fuck all you motherfuckers. Fuck all y'all. We're both important, but we are both different in various ways. And us being able to understand one another will only reinforce a better community in the sense of your patriarch and matriarchs of the family getting along, being an example, and that can be shown to the generations to come as far as the importance of that. But when you don't have that, we are in chaos. We are in discourse. We are in tension. We are in dissension. We are disconnected. Somebody be holding a grudge. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck. Somebody could be holding a grudge with someone just because they thought a family member of theirs was disrespected. Or it could be a story that was told to them. And now they ain't talking to somebody, just because of a story that they were told. Didn't even vet the story. Didn't even find out all the details of the story. They just only took said version of the story and ran with that. To give an example. And this really made me think about the dynamic of parents. The dynamic of parents. And, it's whatever. Y'all can't get along. Do things in the best interest of the children that you have. Do that. That's more important. I'm gonna give it a buck. When you start having kids, your life is not really about you alone anymore. It's about raising your kids. Let's put that out there. Let's normalize that. Kids are not a fashion accessory. Oh, let me have these kids because they look cute. What the fuck are you thinking about? And I'm getting a little passionate because it's something I'm very, very passionate about. Kids are not a fucking trinket that should just be shined in front of people in reference to you having it. And it's not an it. It's a human being. But getting back to the interview. Why do we have a hard time, black men and black women not being able to get along? Prominently, we saw that when it came down to both parents, solid parents. Of course they are different, but what were they doing to be able to actually get along and come together? Which highlights the reason why the mom, Busta's mom, had a hard time when it came down to her ex-husband. Let's really say that. Her ex-husband passing away and didn't clean up whatever issues that they had prior to that happening. It shows you that she still fucking loved that man.
Yeah, of course.
We're human beings at the end of the day. If you got a fucking issue, talk the shit out. That's surefire one way to love one another. Really truly love, like, love is a byproduct of appreciating one's existence.
Yeah.
But we live in a society now that reinforces individualism, reinforces only doing shit by yourself, reinforces, oh, I'm sick, I can't talk to nobody, about me being sick. Let me go ahead and just, get a couple of halls and, some Robitussin and I'll be straight. Nah, call a motherfucker and see if they can help you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we boiled ourselves down to money, sex, and various aspects of power. And always trying to get over someone or have some sense of upsmanship in reference to trying to think that we have power over someone, or we're manipulating someone, or we have control over someone. All that shit is for the birds. If y'all don't know what the fuck I mean when it comes down to the birds, essentially I'm saying another form of me saying it's bullshit.
Oh my God.
Because it's an old term. That's an old term. For the birds, that's an old term.
I say that too, so I get it.
Get it. We about around the same age, Nat. We about around the same age. Okay? Heck. They don't say that. They don't say that in this new generation. They don't say for the birds. What they say? I don't even know what they say now.
I'm about to say, I have no idea. I did not know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Trying to figure it out.
So, but anything else you got in that?
Yeah, there was one other thing. And this is the last thing, because this was the thing that kind of really got me. I can't quote this because I don't remember exactly how he told this story. I'm not going to try to tell the whole thing, but he touched on health in the interview.
Oh yeah.
And it was the most, for me, as being overweight my whole life, him telling this story, and you've seen Busta Rhymes. Like Busta Rhymes, like if you've seen him when he was younger, he was never, he was never a fat guy.
He was a stick.
But he was did a have tall a stick. Yes, and if you've seen him throughout time, you see how his body has changed. And then he went through this period of where he gained this weight, and he talked about that in the interview. And this was the most powerful part to me in that whole interview. This was one of the powerful parts for me personally. Mm-hmm. It kind of hit home. He had mentioned how he described how he was in the car with his bodyguards one day or one night or something like that, and they were going somewhere, and he had this breathing issue that his son had noticed. And what he said was essentially happening, I think, is that his body was trying to breathe naturally, or was trying to, take in air, but it couldn't. So what it would do is that it would just, this is not funny because I've seen this firsthand, but it would take this really big breath for all the breaths that it couldn't take. Mm-hmm. So if I can play it out, it probably looks something like, and then he went right back to sleep. So it was almost like he was woke for a minute and then he went right back to sleep. Mm-hmm. That's frightened his son. So his son he explained how his son was afraid to talk to him about it. Instead, he goes to a bodyguard and his security pulls him aside and tells him about it. Now, I think he said that this happened, that even after that, he went to a doctor and the doctor had prescribed him, was it prednisone?
Yeah.
He prescribed him something,
Hmm.
but it was basically a steroid, right? Because he was still performing, so he was still on tour. He was still very much active. Um, and let's just say that he took the steroid, to kind of get through each night
Hmm.
and to kind of keep him stable. Well, there was one night where I think somebody pulled him aside and told him, "Look, like you need to go to the doctor." And when he got to the doctor, he said he said that when the doctor came in, he said he was scrolling through Instagram. He was just kind of hunched over and scrolling through Instagram. And he said when the doctor came in, I think he said hi to the doctor or something like that. And the doctor's response was, "I can hear you breathing through the door
Mm. Yeah.
outside."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And it reminded me of somebody. I'm not going to say it on here. I'll text you later
Yeah.
because you know who the person is. But it brought back memories of that person, and I was like, "Wow!" And that wasn't even it. He also said that after him and while he was having this doctor's visit, that he was basically expecting for the doctor to prescribe him prednisone or the steroid that his other doctor was prescribing him, um, so he could finish his tour. Well, if I remember this right, he was like in like another country or something like that. Like he wasn't in the States. He couldn't get to his regular doctor. So this doctor, was contacted by his physician, and he sent over his paperwork. The doctor basically said that he stuck a tube down his throat so he could look and see what was going on. He said that there were polyps that had basically developed on in his throat
Yeah. Yeah.
that were restricting 90%
Yeah.
of his airway. I couldn't believe it. He said the doctor told him that if he had went to sleep, like let's just say that he had went to sleep that night and he couldn't get that other 10% out, that would have been it.
Yep.
And he said that's when he knew he had to change his habits. And what I got from it is that it wasn't even so much a lot of, and he fell into this depression, I think, after his father died, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
Because he described that he had never lost anybody that close. So
Yeah.
his dad died, and then he fell into this whole thing of where, and he didn't really say depression, but it was a state of being where he
Yeah.
just wasn't taking care of himself.
Hmm.
And I don't even know if it was just food, right? Because he described that he was smoking and drinking, and that was the funny part. He never mentioned that he was overeating or nothing like that.
Right.
I mean, but we could see that he had gained weight, but still, it wasn't. And one thing he said was, "I was 340 pounds or something like that, and it felt like 340 pounds." And I was like, "Wow, the interview, y'all, is just so transparent. He is being so honest and so I mean, I can't even, he's just being just open about everything that happened. And, after that meeting with a doctor, they rushed him to the ER and all that stuff. But here's what I kind of got out of it. The prednisone was basically a way for him to ignore the real issue, right? So the real issue is that he needed to he needed to change the way he was living.
Yeah.
So he needed to, I guess, stop smoking. I don't know what all he changed. I know he got a trainer. I know he started working out.
He's been in the
Um,
gym. He's definitely been in the gym. He does.
yeah.
He still does
Oh, he
smoke.
looks good. He
He
looks different.
he still does smoke. He still does drink, but not to the same frequency. Not to
Yeah.
the same frequency that he did during the time he was going through his depressive state.
Yeah.
However, he is in the gym heavy. He is lifting heavy. You know what I'm saying? Because if you look, Busta Rhymes in the '90s is definitely not the
It's
Busta
not him
Rhymes
now.
of today. Okay?
It's not him now. But you can say the same thing for like who else blew up? Method Man. I mean, I've been down with
Method
Method Man
Man,
for so long.
just
We now like today's Method
diesel.
Man is not. It is not
Diesel.
Method Man. It's
Diesel. Like,
I'm like, what is going on?
I'm telling you, these brothers, like,
They're getting it right.
recently, I put on my Facebook a couple of it was one video of this one influencer or creator by the name of Melanie King that I listen to her videos and everything, and
That sounds familiar.
shout you out, Melanie, shout you out, but and it was this one video of this woman who did a video when she was 70, or no, she was I think it was like 65, or they noticed her when she was 65, or got wind of her when she was 65, but then caught back up with her when she was 71, and then Melanie did the video when she now in this year is 72, but she looks like she's in her 30s. Works out, has multiple businesses, married, literally is a gym rat. Let's put it out there. Is a gym rat, and this woman holds 2 Guinness Book of World Records. 2. One of them is the most, at her age, is the most burpees in 1 minute. 72. What? Black woman at that. Black woman, just let y'all know. Black woman. Black woman at that. I put on the video or the caption, I put hashtag health is wealth. Like, and let's, what? Let's put it out there. It's so pervasive in our community for us not to truly care about ourselves how we need to.
Yeah.
And we're not, and I'll put this out there, we're genuinely not taught. Genuinely, we are not taught these things.
No, we're not taught. We're not, and that's something that I was talking to somebody about. I don't know, but my my family, I come from a big family. I mean, like literally, like I have a lot of cousins and nieces and nephews, but they're all big. Okay, so it's not something that it was never talked about in my house. Oh, Natalie, eat a salad, or oh, Natalie, let's do some physical exercise, or I will put you in a summer camp where you can learn how to swim or play a sport, or it wasn't any of that. It was more promoting like unhealthy eating habits, and on top of that, it was promoting like laziness. Like you were like after you ate, you probably showered and went to bed, or after you ate, you're probably sitting on the couch watching TV, or you're doing homework, but you're still sitting at a table or the desk doing your homework, and you just ate. So there was no physical activity to follow up after you just ate. And you know that you just ate a full course meal because my mother cooked it. Okay. And she cooked it and grease and all kinds of shit. So it was never healthy. Oh, but it was good. Oh, Linda could cook. Okay. But what I'm telling you, after that interview with Busta Rhymes, tell me, okay. After the interview with Busta Rhymes, I went in my refrigerator and I had a big chocolate cake. I threw away my chocolate cake. Y'all stop playing. I threw away my chocolate cake. I was like, fuck this shit.
Yo.
I threw away my chocolate cake. I started like legit. And here's the thing. I've started watching more and more inspirational videos, and there was a young lady I watched the other day, and she said something that made so much sense to me. This may sound crazy to y'all, but she basically said, and she's in the gym all the time, like she looks great, but she said, people preach about motivation and motivation and motivation, and she was like, she said something to the point of like, oh, I can't think about what she said, but she basically was saying, that motivation is probably not going to get you to where you want to be. She said because there's some days where you're not going to be
You're motivated.
motivated,
Yeah.
and she's like, you have to discipline yourself. And she's like, and you have to do something else. I forget what else she said, but when she said that, I was like, no more chocolate cake now. No chocolate cake. I threw in a chocolate cake. I think I came in here. I had to find my exercise vest, y'all. I had to find because it was buried in the deep dark depths. But I found the bitch. Yes, I did, and I put her ass on, and I worked out, and I was like, I'm gonna find this one today. Yes, I am. And then last night, I'm telling you, last night I started, I did my first meal prep, and I have never meal prepped ever in my life. It is first of all,
it's very tedious.
I didn't have enough food to meal prep.
It's very tedious. I was like, so you gotta have enough. You definitely gotta have enough.
I was like, wait a minute, I need enough food. I know I'm going into personal details. What I'm trying to say is that Busta Rhymes' interview was like a motivational speak for many different topics and many different subjects.
Yeah.
I didn't just get go lose weight. I got other stuff like, when he talked about being disciplined, when he talked about his kids, when he talked about his parents, when he talked about how he's raised or his relationship with his children.
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of different. When he talked about his career and how he got to where he is.
Yeah.
When the other rappers gave him they basically gave him his flowers.
Quotes. Ben
Jones and I was like
quoting some rap. I think the most prominent quote that Chuck D gave, that was solid. That was solid. Like, I believe that, and here's the main reason why I have Chuck D is my number 2 and Busta Rhymes as my number 3. Why? Because if it wasn't for Chuck D, Busta Rhymes wouldn't exist. If it wasn't for Chuck D, like the idea of Busta Rhymes would not exist.
Yeah.
However, Chuck D, during his era with Public Enemy, wordsmith.
Yeah.
A great wordsmith. Like enough people don't even give him his flowers. Probably one of the reasons why they don't, give him his flowers as much is because of the controversy when it came down to Flavor Flav, and who was it? Oh man, who's the brother who's the master of information in Public Enemy? I forget the brother's name. Because that was one of the reasons why there was always a lot of tension within Public Enemy, because it was Flavor Flav and I forget that brother's name, but he was a part of the was it SW, was it S3 SWs, I believe. I forget the name of the military guys in Public Enemy, because you had Chuck D, you had Flavor Flav, you had Terminator X, who was the DJ. And then, what is that brother's name?
I don't remember their names.
I forget the brother's name, but nevertheless, they got a lot of their information from Nation of Islam. When it came down to Public Enemy, they got a lot of their information from Nation of Islam. But as far as Chuck D taught me innovation as far as different topics to talk about in rap.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people that believe rap is only drugs, sex, sexism, bitches and hoes. You know what I'm saying? Like all
more hoes.
Right. All that shit. They literally believe that's all rap. And it's not. It's just the stuff that most people will listen to because that's the stuff they put commercially out. More so.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, but you ain't listened to Chuck D. You haven't listened to Mos Def. You haven't listened to Common, especially Common in later years, because Common the funny thing was he started out as a gangster rapper. That's hilarious. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even know that. I tuned in.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I Common Sense became common, and when he became common, that's how he got tied to Erykah Badu. This lie. That whole
Yeah.
friggin' that whole shift. In his persona. That's when he became common only, not Common Sense. But I remember Common Sense when it came down to I Used to Love Her. That
Oh yeah.
track, woo,
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
yo. And the funny thing was, he was talking about hip hop in that track. I thought he was talking about a chick.
I thought he was talking about a girl too.
It was a analogy. It was an analogy. He was using a woman as
Okay.
the base of what hip hop was at that time. That's real talk. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Hip hop taught me how to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is, this is one of the biggest things I have an issue with today. It's not really an issue because I'm gonna be myself inevitably, because I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I love me, and I know people love me. For me being me. You know, and I know people
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm willing to grow. So a lot of people have an issue because I'm comfortable in using big words. Very comfortable in using big words. I don't give a fuck. You know, well, I can say I don't give a fuck, but I can also say indubitably and actually spell it. And I can talk to anybody. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. You know, anyone. And that's what's crazy because a lot of people think once they look at me, especially certain people, they look at you and be like, "You not supposed to be saying what you saying." Especially how articulate you are. You're not supposed to be saying what you're saying. This is not. You don't match. What's coming out of your mouth don't match with how you look. That happens more
Mm-hmm.
often than not in this country. You know, it's bullshit, but you got ignorant motherfuckers out there. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, um, ready to wrap this shit up.
Yeah, I'm done. I mean that was the last point I wanted to touch on because um it was like one of the most part the way he described it, it was in like a few different stages. It wasn't like and then he was honest about it. He said he said that's not when I changed. That's not when I changed. It took him like it took him about 3 or 4 times for something to happen before he actually took action. So
Here's
yeah.
my thing. Let's in the black community when it comes down to us individually and collectively, let's give ourselves the decency and the love enough to do something the first time around when we actually need to change. We may not be successful at it, but don't have a understanding or have an awareness of something that we need to change and then have to get to the last chance.
Oh yeah.
I think that happens more often than not. Like we'll be like, "Oh, I'll stop drinking, I'll stop smoking, I'll stop eating at McDonald's." You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
then we legitimately have to be close to being on our deathbed to be able to be like, "Oh, this is the time to change now." No, it was 6 other times before. No, like you had 5 other chances to
Yeah.
realize.
Y'all better go throw away y'all chocolate cakes like I did. That's what you gotta do. You better go find your vest. I found mine.
I'm just saying, like
I sure did.
you don't want to be on your deathbed. You don't want to be like on the brink of getting cancer. You don't want to be on the brink of like having to realize like you ain't got no breath in your system to be able to actually live. To be like, oh, maybe this is the time now. You don't want a situation where your loved one has to tell someone else to tell you? What?
Yeah.
Take the initiative now to change. Now. Now. Right now, right now. What is it going to hurt? What? You now comfortable? You comfortable in doing shit that inevitably is going to put you closer to the grave than not?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I don't have. Let me say this. I have a lot of sympathy for my community because there are a lot of things that we have gone through that we often don't know what to do. However, I don't have enough empathy for my community. Or no, let me rephrase it. I have enough empathy for my community, but I'm not going to have sympathy for my community that we have ones in our community that know they're doing wrong when they know they can do right. We are smart enough to do the right thing. It's just that we choose comfort and complacency over health and routine. Like today, I worked out twice today.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Of course, I'll put this caveat on it. Because of my profession, I have to work out more often than not, in addition to my age. You know what I'm saying? But fuck that. This is something that is a lifestyle. You know? This is one of the days I work out twice. On another day, I'll work out once because I also give myself breaks in between because I don't want to break my body. You know? It's like you gotta find that middle ground. You don't want to be completely gluttonous, but at the same time, you don't want to be like one of these vegans out here, you know what I'm saying, that look like a translucent piece of paper that, you know, was splashed with some oil. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to overdo anything. You want to find what is your happy medium and then work towards certain goals to get better at a certain pace.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always about overdoing it. It's about starting and finding your niche of how you need to do it. For your health, for your well-being, for your sanity.
Yeah.
First, and then after that, you can think about being an example for others that you love, care about, or are asking for your assistance. Notice how I said that. You love and care about. The ones that you love and care about, sometimes they don't need to ask you for shit. You just need to give it to them. Let them know, hey, maybe it's okay to pick up that broccoli. Maybe it's okay, you know what I'm saying, pick up that dumbbell.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. This is it's a passion of mine. I'm saying.
Oh my God.
Maybe it's okay to switch one particular food item to another. Maybe it's okay to just start off with a couple of push-ups. A couple. Two. Couple. 1, 2. 2 push-ups. You can start off with 2 push-ups. That's okay. Because it's now trying to get the mindset to revert into something where one day you can do 50 straight, no breaks. And then another day you can do 100. But before we get to 100, before we get to 50, before we get to 30, before we even get to 25, before we get to 15, let's start off with 2. 1, 2. Maybe even 3. 1, 2, 3. I love you. So, I guess we get it off there.
I'm sorry.
I know it was kind of cheesy, but I don't give a fuck.
Y'all gonna throw away that chocolate cake. Y'all gonna throw away that shit in your refrigerator.
Ah.
I gotta stop. Okay. Yep. I'm about to go outside and exercise now. Mhm. I sure am about to go take Lola.
All right. We gonna wrap this shit up. Hey, good interview. You know, definitely give us a lot of wisdom. Give us a lot of wisdom.
Yeah. Go watch the interview, y'all. Like
Definitely go
really,
watch the interview.
it's worth it. I mean, break it up. It's long. I mean, when I say long, I think it's over like 2 hours long. I was up for a long time just trying to watch it. I was falling asleep,
It's
so I didn't. So I would say maybe start it.
I think it's about an hour. It's an hour and like a little over an hour and 47 minutes. So it's close to 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's close to 2 hours, but it potent,
Okay.
give you a lot of things to think about. You know what I'm saying? If you want to go ahead, I'll put the link in the description to the video. But yeah, nevertheless, we're Raw Exchange Podcast. Y'all take it easy. Have a wonderful week. Bye bye.